Oscar always started his day off with a cup of fresh coffee at his favorite coffee shop, and that morning was no exception. However, he was surprised to find the place especially crowded that day. People wanted to enjoy the invigorating drink before going about their business. The waiters struggled to keep up with the orders, and many customers had to serve themselves, as was the case with the young woman who was carefully maneuvering between the tables, trying to take her coffee outside. Suddenly, someone accidentally pushed her and Chloe lost balance and dropped her coffee on the man sitting at the table nearby. Seeing the brown stain spread rapidly on the man's jacket, Chloe threw her hands up and said guiltily, "I'm so sorry. It's my fault. Please forgive me." "Come on, stop it. It's actually unclear who got it worse, my jacket or your coffee. And you were also affected. You lost your drink. So let me make it up to you and get you a new cup," Oscar said with a smile. There wasn't even a hint of malice or irritation in his voice. "That'd be great. I must have gotten into some fairy tale or something, since I ruined a man's suit and got treated to a coffee for doing it." The woman laughed and sat down at the man's table after a moment's hesitation. The young people relaxed and quickly overcame their natural modesty. They didn't even notice that they spent about half an hour chatting like old friends. "I didn't accidentally burn you, did I? Because the coffee was so hot?" the woman asked in a concerned voice. "Don't worry about it. You can't scare me with a little hot coffee. I'm actually a firefighter, so I'm not afraid of fire or anything that is considered hot," Oscar answered. "That's impressive. You're the first firefighter I've ever met. You have such a dangerous and important job," Chloe said admiringly, looking at the young man with her big, beautiful eyes. And when Oscar asked her to take a little walk together, she didn't mind in the least. The young people were having a great time. Oscar treated Chloe to some ice cream and cotton candy on their way, which gave Chloe the opportunity to feel the forgotten taste of childhood on her lips. She was having a great time and caught herself thinking that she felt very comfortable next to her new friend. Oscar told Chloe about his childhood and how hard his life was, which made him instantly earn her respect. He walked the woman home, and as they were saying their goodbyes, he asked if they could see each other again tomorrow. "So tell me, who's the lucky man?" Chloe's mother asked her at the door. "I can see it all in your eyes. You can't hide anything from me." "His name is Oscar. We met at a coffee shop. He's a firefighter. Mom, a real hero. He risks his life to save others every day," the woman said with delight. "I'm sorry, I don't share your excitement on this matter. If he were a businessman or some kind of an artist, it would be a completely different matter. But he seems to be just another romantic soul obsessed with the idea of saving the whole world on a meager salary." Chloe's mother noted reasonably. When talking about men, the woman prioritized personal gain over a romantic outlook on life. "Mom, do you really think there are businessmen and artists everywhere? As if it's so easy to meet them. Oscar told me a lot about himself. He's actually an orphan," Chloe replied, pursing her lips. "He was all alone in this world from an early age, and yet he grew up to be a good man. You will definitely like him." "You just wait and see," the mother said quietly, making it clear that the conversation was over. She loved her daughter and wanted to protect Chloe from the mistakes of her youth, the ones she made many years ago. 6 months passed quickly. To the surprise of Chloe's mother, her daughter's infatuation turned out to be more serious than it seemed at first glance. The woman was simply crazy about Oscar. She fell head over heels for him. The young people held a small wedding ceremony for only their relatives and closest friends and went off to start their family life in a small, cozy house in the suburbs. Married to her beloved, Chloe felt like she was behind a stone wall and supported her husband in all his endeavors. Oscar grew up in an orphanage, and thus he valued his family more than anything else in the world and dreamed of having children soon. Therefore, when the woman got pregnant, her husband's joy knew no bounds. He literally showered his beloved with flowers and protected her peace all the way throughout the pregnancy. Even though the pregnancy was going great, Amelie was born prematurely, and the doctors weren't even sure if the girl would survive. Those were terrible days in the life of the young family. But fortunately, the baby gradually got stronger. Due to the difficult childbirth, the girl had a developmental delay. The baby was socialized poorly. She needed a lot of attention and communication. Of course, Chloe put in a lot of effort to help her daughter. She played educational games with her and read books to her. She also took her to all kinds of specialists. But any real improvement in Amelie's development started only after the family got a puppy. Oscar was the one to bring home the little fluffy miracle called Mickey. The man dreamed of having a dog ever since he was little, and when he finally got a family, the man decided to make his lifelong dream come true. The puppy had a dark coat, beautiful amber eyes, floppy ears, and a tiny tail, which wagged so intensely that it seemed as though it had a motor. Chloe wasn't very excited about the puppy's appearance in the house. It's not that she didn't like animals, but she didn't feel much joy at the sight of Mickey, as she thought that the pet would only give her more work around the house and ruin the furniture. But it turned out that she was very wrong. The puppy was rather smart, and Amelie immediately took a liking to him. The girl extended her hands towards him and babbled something joyfully. Now, the first thing she did after waking up was call out for her beloved friend. "You see, dear, the puppy is very smart. I got him from a kennel. The owner said that Mickey has an excellent pedigree, and his parents are the winners of many exhibitions and competitions," Oscar said to his wife. Chloe only smiled in response and watched their little daughter and Mickey play with blocks, which the smart dog brought over to the girl in his teeth. With the puppy's appearance at the house, Amelie made a significant improvement in her development, and over time, she was no different from her peers. 5 years had passed. They were filled with joyful moments and new experiences. Mickey grew up and became a full-fledged member of the family, as well as Amelie's best friend and nanny. Every day, as Oscar got ready for work, he patted the dog on the withers, saying that he was going to get a surprise in the evening. Being smart, Mickey always replied by barking understandingly and wagging his tail. The dog knew that the man meant a walk in the park full of squirrels and delicious treats from the butcher shop afterwards. That morning wasn't any different. After saying goodbye to his wife and daughter, Oscar gave the dog a promising wink and closed the door behind him, before going off to work in the fire department. All day long, Mickey was behaving strangely. The pet was usually calm, but that day he looked clearly scared and anxious. Chloe didn't pay much attention to it, thinking that dogs, like people, may have their own quirks. However, in the evening, it turned out that the pet's fears were justified. A police officer came to the family's house. "Please accept my sincerest condolences. Your husband died in a fire. He saved a little girl and her grandmother, but he didn't make it out of the burning house." The words of the district officer hit the woman like a bolt from the blue. She felt dizzy at first and then collapsed on the floor. Chloe remembered the funeral in every detail. The pompous speeches of Oscar's fellow firefighters, the stingy tears of his acquaintances, and the Order of Courage awarded to her beloved husband posthumously. During the funeral, Mickey approached the closed coffin and started whining, touching the wooden surface with his paw. "That's his way of saying goodbye. He's just an animal, but he understands everything," people whispered. Chloe was barely keeping it together, thanks to some strong sedatives she took beforehand. The eyes of the young widow were red from all the crying and heartbreak. After the funeral, Mickey didn't want to return home. Instead, when the funeral procession left, he remained at the grave of his owner. There he spent about a month. When the emaciated dog finally decided to return to the family, Chloe felt even love and respect for the animal. One day, when Amelie was at daycare and Chloe was busy in the kitchen, Mickey invitingly pulled the woman by the sleeve and led her to the exit. "Do you want to show me something, honey?" "Okay, let's go." The woman agreed and followed the dog. The dog took Chloe to the park, and the poor woman was shocked by what she saw there. A young man was sitting on a piece of cardboard under the shade of a small tree. His clothes were dirty and torn, and there were crutches lying nearby. But that wasn't what shocked Chloe. It was the fact that the homeless man looked exactly like her dead husband. "Oscar? Darling? You're alive?" the woman shouted, running up to the homeless man. The woman hugged him tightly, unable to stop crying. "I'm sorry, you must have taken me for someone else. I'm not Oscar, and I was never dead. Although I did get into an accident in August, which is why I need crutches now. My legs won't seem to heal properly." The homeless man's confession made Chloe cry even harder. The man turned out to have the same voice as her deceased husband. Same voice, same looks, and on top of that, he said he had an accident in August, which was when her husband died in that fire. After talking to the homeless man, Chloe learned about his hard life. As it turned out, David came from a poor family. He was actually an orphan who was raised by his alcoholic aunt. And a year ago, he got into a bike accident. Mickey stood next to the homeless man all the time, poking his muzzle into his shoulder now and then. Surprised by her pet's behavior, the woman thought for a moment and said, "You know what? Let's go to my place. You'll wash up and change and have a decent dinner. Don't look at me like that. I'm sure that someone who looks exactly like my husband couldn't hurt me. And I see that Mickey likes you, and he feels people very well, trust me." The man smiled embarrassedly and followed Chloe and the dog to their home. In the evening, when little Amelie returned home from daycare, her joy knew no bounds. "Wow! Daddy's back!" the girl screamed and threw herself into David's arms. The man was touched and even started crying, and Chloe decided not to explain anything to her daughter just yet. She looked truly happy for the first time in years. After a brief physical therapy course at the hospital, David started feeling much better and could now walk without crutches. To pay Chloe back for her help, he complied with her request and took her to see his aunt. Being an alcoholic, the woman could barely be seen sober, but that morning, luck was on Chloe's side, so she managed to get answers to all her questions. But first, the aunt denied everything and claimed that she didn't know why the deceased Oscar looked exactly like David. But then, she gave up and said that the men were twins. That is, they were brothers. When the boys lost their parents, the woman couldn't take in both kids, so Oscar ended up in an orphanage, while David stayed with her. "So you are brothers," Chloe whispered excitedly, unable to take her eyes off of David. They returned home together, where they were met by their favorite pet Mickey and little Amelie, who still considered the man her father. Trying to figure out the best way to deal with the situation, Chloe decided not to rush things and invited David to live with them for a while. The man was happy to agree, unaware that he would stay with his brother's family forever. Chloe quickly got used to David. It wasn't difficult since he was exactly like her late husband. And not just his looks, but his character too. David had the same kind of heart as his brother did, and sometimes it seemed to Chloe that it was her husband who descended from heaven and came back to their family. The woman was happy, which was something she didn't think she would ever be again. Sometime later, David's legs were finally back to normal, and he got a job, trying to provide for his new family with everything they needed. He took Mickey for a walk in the park every evening just like his brother did, never failing to stop at the butcher's for a fresh bone for his friend. The man often went to visit his brother's grave. Unfortunately, he only learned of his existence after the man died. Leaning over the grave, David cried for a long time and whispered something quietly to his brother. Mickey was the only one who ever heard those conversations, but he chose to keep them secret. The smart dog knew that his owner was promising his brother to take good care of his family and to love them until his last breath.